Hi and welcome to Kingdom Breakthrough. And before we get into Joshua chapter 10, I just want to say that as many of you know, we are entering, Paige and I, a new season of ministry over the next few weeks, and particularly starting in the beginning of 2021 in January. And if you'd like to receive a prayer letter, occasional prayer letter from us about what's going on, things to be praying into, you'd like to stand with us, you'd like to be able to have an opportunity to not only hear what's going on, but as God leads you and God gives you things to share, that you're able to share that with us, well, we'd be very grateful for that partnership. And if you're interested in that, if you'd like to click the link below the YouTube video, if you're looking at this on the YouTube channel or in the email that I've sent you, you'll find a link to subscribe to that prayer letter. We don't want to send out unsolicited emails or emails that people don't want for whatever reason. And you can obviously unsubscribe at any time. So if you're interested in that, just click the link and sign up for that. And we would love to share with you various prayer requests in this transitional season, October, November, December of 2020, and looking into 2021. And we'd be very grateful for your prayer support during that time to stand with us and all that God has for us. We believe that God has been with us through many years of working together and working with God and working for God. And we're praying that in this new season that God's going to work in and through us in an ever-increasing way. And we'd love to do that as part of a team of people that God draws together for his kingdom purposes. So Joshua chapter 10, and you may remember the story from last week and the previous week as well about the kings that come against the people of Gibeon, and Joshua and his army respond to that cry for help, and they say that we're going to come and we're actually going to make a significant difference. And in verse 8, we talked last time about not being afraid because of all that God was about to do and how fear can so easily paralyze our own lives. I mean, I've certainly experienced that time and again. And then we have to hold on to what God has actually said. And what God has said is very important and very special. So don't be afraid. In verse 9, Joshua traveled all night from Gilgal and took the Amorite armies by surprise. You know, there are times in our lives, I believe, that we need to do the unexpected and take the enemy by surprise. This account reminds me of something that happened back in the early 80s in the Falklands War, where the British forces were back on the Falkland Islands. And I know people have different political views about this, and I'm simply sharing this as an illustration from history without saying whether one side was right or wrong. But the paratroopers and other of the UK soldiers were on the islands and needed to get from one place to another. And the tale is told that they unexpectedly travelled all night and took the enemy by surprise the next morning. And there are times when we need to say to God, this is the situation I'm in. How shall we surprise the enemy? And the enemy for us is not another nation. It is not even nations like happened here in Joshua chapter 10 that were opposing a particular group, in this case the Gibeonites. It's the enemy of our souls. And Satan is going to do everything he can to trip us up. And of course Satan is very wise, he's very experienced, he has resources that are incredibly powerful and numerous. And yet we have in each of us, if we are followers of Jesus, if we're disciples of him, if we've taken on the way of the cross, we have in us a resource that is greater than all those things arrayed against us. And sometimes we need to perhaps surprise the enemy and maybe even surprise ourselves with how we stand up to what the enemy is trying to do. The reality is that the enemy is always trying to push us down. He's always trying to make us feel inadequate, not up to the task. It's fine for others, but not for you. That voice on our shoulders so often. And yet God wants us to surprise him. So whatever challenge you're facing today, and it might be you're facing a significant challenge, cry out to the God of heaven. Say, God, would you help me today to unseat the enemy's attacks on my life, whether it's a surprise to the enemy or not. Doesn't really matter. The point is that we want to be people fighting God's battles in God's way to see God's victory bring honour to God. And maybe today is the time to do just that with God's help.